Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP's daughter is demanding to buy his house even though she can't afford it. Am I the jerk for not selling my house to my daughter because she can't afford the amount that I'm asking for? I'm a 63-year-old man getting ready to retire in the next couple of years. I own my home outright and I've been planning to downsize soon. The house is in a desirable area that's seen a big rise in value over the last decade. It's currently worth around $700,000 based on recent appraisals and similar sales in the neighborhood. A few months ago, my daughter, who's 30, told me that she and her husband were interested in buying the house when I move out. I thought that was a great idea. I like the thought of the house staying in the family, and I know how hard it is for young people to buy homes these days. So I told her I'd be willing to sell it to them for $500,000. That's a full $200,000 under market value. I figured that was more than fair and a way that I could help them without completely derailing my retirement plans. Well, that's when the issues started. My daughter didn't respond with excitement or thanks. Instead, she said they'd only be able to afford $350,000, and she asked if I could go that low instead. I told her I couldn't do that. Selling it for $500,000 already meant I was giving up a pretty significant chunk of value. Dropping it even further would force me to rethink my entire retirement plan. She got upset and said that I was choosing money over family. She told me I was being greedy and that any good parent would help their child buy a home. I reminded her that I was already doing that by offering the house at a huge discount. She just said that if I really cared, I'd make it work. After the conversation, I got a message from her husband. He was very kind and actually apologized for how she reacted. He said he completely understands where I'm coming from and that $500,000 is already more than generous. He mentioned that he's been trying to talk to her about it, but she's still upset and feels like I'm letting them down. To be clear, I'm doing very well financially, but I'm not some millionaire with endless money. I worked hard to get here, and I was looking forward to using the equity from the house to help me retire comfortably and maybe do some traveling. I don't want this to blow up our relationship, but I also don't want to feel guilted into making a huge financial decision that doesn't make sense. Some family members are saying I should just help her out. Others agree that she's being unreasonable and entitled. I don't know anymore. I feel stuck. So, am I the jerk for refusing to sell my house to my daughter at the price she wants, even after already offering her a big discount? Not the jerk. Offering your daughter the house at $200,000 under market value is already an incredibly generous gesture, and her acting like it's not enough is just plain entitled. You're not some cartoon villain choosing money over family. You're a responsible adult planning for retirement. She's trying to rewrite the definition of helping into sacrificing your future for mine, and that's not fair. No jerks here. You're not wrong for setting a fair boundary, especially after already offering a generous discount, and your daughter isn't necessarily a villain either. Buying a home can be an emotional and overwhelming process, especially when it involves family. It sounds like she's letting her stress and hopes get the better of her. Hopefully, with time and space, she'll come to see that you've already gone above and beyond, and that this isn't about love or loyalty, just financial reality. You're the jerk. You say you're financially stable and looking to retire comfortably, yet you're turning your daughter's dream of owning a home into a bargaining chip. Do you have any idea what it's like for younger people trying to buy homes right now? Boomers like you have completely destroyed the economy, and home ownership is impossible now for most of us. Offering a discount is good, but refusing to budge when you clearly could afford to help more just feels cold. If the house means so much to her and you're really doing fine, what's the harm in giving a bit more? You sound like someone who cares more about playing golf once he's retired than ensuring your daughter's future is stable. Update. It's been a week since I posted, and I wanted to thank everyone who shared their thoughts. A lot of the comments really made me think about where my priorities were. I realized I had been focusing almost entirely on my retirement plans and not really considering how much this meant to my daughter. So I reached out and I asked her to come over for another conversation to see if we could find some middle ground. She came by with her husband, and this time the mood felt lighter. We sat down and I told her I was willing to go down to $400,000 total, which is well below market value, and I thought a pretty generous offer. At first, she seemed hopeful, but then she brought up again that 350K was already stretching it for them. She reminded me that she had told me that number from the start, and she said she knows I have other investments and that I don't actually need the money from the sale as much as I'm making it out to be. Her husband stayed quiet the whole time, clearly uncomfortable. I told her that I love her and I want to help, but I also need some time to think everything through. That's when she got visibly frustrated, stood up, and told her husband it was time to go, saying I was still being selfish. Now I'm back here because I genuinely don't know what to do. Would lowering the price to 350K be the right thing to do for my daughter? Or is 400K already more than fair, considering how far below market that is? I'm torn between wanting to support her and also feeling like I've already gone as far as I reasonably can. Am I wrong for holding the line at 400K? No offense, but your daughter sounds incredibly entitled. You already knocked off a huge chunk of the asking price, and instead of being grateful, she's acting like you're the bad guy for not giving her exactly what she wants. Did you raise her to think the world owes her something, or is this just how she handles stress? Either way, it's not your job to fund her entire life just because you're financially comfortable. She's an adult. Being generous shouldn't turn into being taken advantage of. OP. I never felt like I was raising her to be this way. When she was younger, we all joked that she was a bit of a brat sometimes, but I always saw her as a good kid with a good heart. If anything, I think some of this might have come from my ex-wife. She had a way of making things about what she felt she deserved, and maybe that rubbed off on her over time. But I know for sure it didn't come from me. I tried to raise her to be thoughtful and grounded. If I were in your shoes, I'd honestly just let her have it for whatever she can afford. You sound like you're doing really well financially, and it kind of feels like you're holding on to wealth instead of using it to support the people you love. What's the point of being comfortable if you can't help your own daughter get a stable home? Final update. Well, here we are again. I appreciate all the perspectives I got on my last post. I really took them to heart. After sitting with everything for a few days, I decided to call my daughter and offer the house to her for 350K. I told her that this whole thing had been stressing me out, that I haven't been sleeping well, and that I just wanted to be done with it. She got quiet for a second and then said the problem is they haven't been able to get approved for a mortgage at that amount. I was confused because she had been so firm about that number before. That's when she said they can still pay 350K, but now she wants to do owner financing. She said there's no reason I shouldn't be able to do this and that the monthly payments could actually help support my retirement, that I don't need the lump sum anyway. And something in me just snapped. It hit me all at once. It didn't matter how generous I was willing to be. She was always going to ask for more. She didn't respect my boundaries, only her idea of what I should do for her. I told her flat out, no, I wasn't going to do owner financing. I said I wouldn't feel comfortable relying on her to make payments, and if she missed them, then I'd be the one forced to evict her and look like the bad guy. She started yelling, saying I was greedy and that she couldn't believe I'd even consider evicting my own daughter and her husband. At that point, I told her I had to go and that I was no longer open to selling the house to her. She called me a few more times, left a bunch of angry texts, but I didn't answer. Later that day, I called a realtor friend just to get a sense of the current market. Turns out, the house would likely sell for 850K right now. Even with a cooling market, he said I'd have a buyer within a few months. I thanked him and told him I'd let him know if and when I decide to move forward. Then, wouldn't you know it, another text from my daughter. This one sounded sweet. She said, "I'm sorry for getting angry. I just love your house because it reminds me of you." I almost laughed. It was just so obvious at that point. That wasn't love. That was manipulation. So Reddit, I'll take your thoughts if you've got them. But this time, I'm sticking with my gut. You can call me an angry boomer all you want, but I'm not angry. I'm clear. And I'm done being the guy who bends so far backward he forgets where his spine is. I'm keeping my boundaries, and I'm keeping my peace. Hey OP, fellow boomer here, and I'm proud of you. I'd give my kids the shirt off my back if they needed it, and they know that. But the reason I would is because they treat me like their father, not an ATM. There's a big difference between helping out of love and being guilted into giving out of obligation. What your daughter's doing isn't about love or respect, it's about control. Good on you for standing your ground. You know, Karen, some people will keep pushing and pushing just to see how much they can get away with. It's like feeding seagulls at the beach. The first crumb looks harmless until you're swarmed. Exactly, Reddit boy. Giving should come from a place of love, not pressure or guilt. The second it starts feeling like an obligation, you're no longer helping them. You're enabling them. And that's the danger. If you don't shut it down, they'll keep taking until there's nothing left but resentment. Preach. Healthy relationships have limits. Respect isn't just saying thank you, it's knowing when not to ask in the first place. My parents will not allow me to have a baby shower with my family unless I invite my mean grandmother. I, 27 female, am almost 8 months pregnant, and apparently the price of having a baby shower is inviting the one person I've spent most of my life actively avoiding, my grandmother. To be clear, this isn't just we don't get along. This is years of disrespect, boundary stomping, manipulation, guilt trips, and my family always shrugging it off because that's just how she is. I used to let that slide. I used to swallow it to keep the peace. But now I'm going to be a mom, and something in me has shifted. I can feel it. I don't have it in me to let someone like her have access to my baby, let alone to one of the first celebrations of her life. But according to my parents, I'm not allowed to have a baby shower unless I invite her. Let me explain. My family had no contact with my grandparents for around 8 years after a massive blowout between my mom and grandma when I was in middle school. Those years were peaceful. Then my grandpa got sick and everyone brushed things under the rug to be there while he battled cancer. He passed, and before he died, he made my mom promise to make sure my grandma wouldn't be alone. My mom made the promise. I did not. Fast forward. When I found out I was pregnant, it was emotional. My boyfriend, who's 28, and I had been hoping and trying, and when the test turned positive, we were both crying, laughing, and shaking. I made a little box with tiny baby socks and the test to surprise him. It was such a sweet moment and a core memory of mine now. But then I made the mistake of telling my mom too early. From the moment she knew, the pregnancy stopped being mine. She pressured me to tell my sister, then pressured me to tell my boyfriend's sister, then tried to guilt me into telling my grandma. She cried and called daily, saying I was hurting the family by keeping it private. I told her I wasn't ready. She said it didn't matter. I caved, one person at a time, each reveal happening earlier than I wanted, each time with pressure and guilt and conditions. Then came Grandma. Before I get to the pregnancy announcement disaster, here are a few things that show who she is. These are not one-offs, they are patterns. Stole donation money I raised for my best friend when her apartment burned down. I was a kid. The money vanished, she lied, and everyone told me to let it go. Threw a tantrum because I concealed carry for safety in a rough area. She spent an entire night pouting, huffing, and making comments. Asked for help with her yard, then micromanaged me and treated me like hired labor. No thank you, no appreciation. Told me she couldn't afford my grandpa's headstone, so I bought his motorcycle, expecting the money to go toward the headstone. She used it to buy a dog she does not walk or train. Gets into my car, insults everything from my driving to my tattoos to my music. Stole a restaurant gift card off my birthday table, then pretended she found it in her purse. Makes gifts featuring photos of me with my ex-fiancé, then demands I physically cut him out of them. Now, when we finally told her I was pregnant, she grabbed my head with her long nails, yanked my face towards hers, and tried to kiss me. I put my hand between us and told her no, loudly and in front of everyone. My mother later told me that I was being dramatic. Then at a family wedding, my grandma cornered me, asking what she did to make me hate her. I told her simply and clearly, "You don't respect my boundaries, and you've been mean to me for a long time. I'm not pretending anymore." She pouted and told people she was hurt. Everyone comforted her, and life moved on. And now that I'm planning my baby shower, suddenly I'm the problem again. My mom told me that I must invite grandma if I want a shower, and if I don't, I'm making her choose sides and punishing her for wanting her mom there. She told me that I'm selfish, that I should act like an adult and just be polite. I told them I would rather have no baby shower at all then spend the entire event trying to avoid being grabbed, lectured, guilted, or kissed. They said that was cruel. So now I'm deciding between 1. A baby shower where I'm stressed, uncomfortable, on alert, and pushing down resentment, or 2. A shower without my family at all. And honestly, the more I sit with it, the easier that second option feels. You're 27 years old. You're about to be someone's mother. Your parents do not get to dictate your guest list. If your family refuses to show up unless your grandmother is invited, then they've already chosen their side and it's hers. So then, throw the shower with your boyfriend's family. Invite your friends. Let your family remove themselves. They're showing you how they'll behave once this baby is here. Believe them. This is the moment where you set the tone for how your household will work. If you cave now, you'll be bargaining and negotiating every boundary for the next decade. The baby's name, who gets to hold her, when grandma gets a turn with her, first birthday, first Christmas. You get the point. They're testing how much control they have. Say no now before your child is the one being guilt-tripped and ignored. Update. So I've made a decision and it's final. I'm having 2 baby showers. One hosted by my mother for the side of the family that wants to keep pretending everything is fine, and one hosted by me and my boyfriend in our own home, and for the people who actually love and respect us. My grandma is invited to my mom's shower. She's not invited to mine. I'm not splitting the family. I'm not making anyone choose. I'm simply choosing peace for myself and my baby, and everyone else is free to choose whatever makes them feel whole. And for the people who keep saying, "You're 27, why are you listening to your mom?" Let's slow down for a second. This isn't about being controlled, this is about patterns. You grow up being taught to keep the peace, not complain, just take it, until one day, your body literally says no more. And once you finally wake up from that cycle, you don't suddenly become a person who cuts everyone off overnight. I'm allowed to learn boundaries at 27. You don't get to shame me for unlearning generational behavior in real time. And to be completely honest, if I were the type to just get over it, we wouldn't be here in the first place. There is no universe where I sit at my own baby shower, smiling politely while someone who has spent over a decade belittling me tries to kiss me in front of people and calls it love. Not happening. Not now. Not ever. So here's how it's going to go. My shower. Small, warm, safe, joyful, and full of people who do not make my skin crawl. My mom's shower. She can include whoever she wants. It's her guest list, not mine. Yes, including my grandmother. I will attend, I will be polite, I'll keep distance, and I will leave the second she crosses a line. That event is for her side of the family, not for my peace. Anyone who feels punished by that can examine why you think my comfort is negotiable. If keeping my boundaries makes you uncomfortable, you can sit with that. I'm busy choosing peace for my baby. Your grandma is rude. You're not obligated to let someone who has treated you badly be part of your celebration just because you share DNA. Protect your peace. Your shower should be joyful, not something you brace yourself for. Your mom isn't in the middle. She's choosing your grandma's comfort over yours. Let her host her own shower where grandma can go. You host yours where you feel safe. Nobody is banned, just separate spaces. That's adulthood, not drama. Good call, OP. My friend's fiance has been mocking me for years. I finally snapped, and now I feel like I'm the problem. I met my best friend when I was 22. We started at the same company and clicked instantly. We liked the same things: books, long walks, hobbies, etc. A couple of years later, we started dating our future partners around the same time, and before long, the 4 of us became something like a unit. Holidays together, game nights, shared birthdays, long weekends away. For almost 9 years, that was my core friend group, my safe space. The problem was her fiancé. He's always been the type who thinks teasing is the same as having a personality. He likes to poke, prod, say the thing that gets a reaction. I became the easiest target because I react when I'm hurt. My face shows everything, and he knew that. He would make comments about my weight, my clothes, the way I talk. It was never really subtle, too. He would say I looked tired, or say I was slow or useless at something. And every time I would flinch or try to laugh or just swallow it. I would tell myself I was being dramatic or that I was too sensitive and that I didn't want tension. My friend always brushed it aside. She would say that was just how he talked and that he didn't mean anything, that he didn't know how to be emotional and that teasing was his version of affection. I tried to believe that because I didn't want to lose her. They were my only close friends. But over time, I started shrinking myself. I stopped talking about my own problems because I didn't want to be the one who ruined the mood. I watched myself slowly get smaller around them without realizing it was happening. 2 months ago, we went on a trip together. We rented a small cabin near the mountains. Everyone was excited, and I tried to be too, but I was in a rough place. I had been tapering off medication that had numbed me for a long time. Everything suddenly felt sharp again. Sounds, thoughts, feelings. I was dizzy often and nauseated. My body felt unfamiliar. I told them this before we went. They nodded and said they understood. We did long hikes during the day. I pushed myself to keep up. When we got back to the cabin in the evening, I cooked dinner to feel useful. I wanted to earn my place, though no one ever said I needed to. One night, I was standing near the fire, trying to keep steady because my balance was off. He laughed and said something like I was afraid of everything and I was being dramatic. He said I needed to just relax. It stung more than usual, plus my dizziness made everything feel close to the surface. Then, the next morning after I had cooked again, I sat down to rest for a second. The pans were still on the stove. He made another comment about how I never do anything, how I was always letting others take care of things. It hit something inside of me that had already been stretched then. I told him to stop. Not yelling at first, just done. He just laughed. That was the part that broke me. Not the words, but the ease of the laugh, like my feelings were some mild inconvenience he didn't need to consider. My friend walked into the room while we were talking, and instead of asking what was wrong, she laughed too. Said we were being dramatic over dishes and that it was no big deal. I felt something in my chest tighten. I walked outside in the cold and cried harder than I have in years. My fiance followed me. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. He didn't tell me to calm down. He just held me and said that we could leave. The next morning, my fiance and I packed quickly. My best friend and her fiance looked confused, maybe even hurt, but they weren't sorry or understanding. When we drove away, the silence in the car was the calmest I'd felt in years. In the weeks that followed, I barely messaged them. I didn't see them at all. My home felt lighter and my shoulders felt looser. I didn't know how heavy the friendship had become until I stepped out of it. I went to a work event alone for the first time without her by my side. I talked and laughed, and people treated me kindly. 2 coworkers told me they wished they had known me better before. I realized something. I realized I wasn't difficult. I wasn't overly sensitive. I was just constantly managing pain in a friendship where my feelings were not allowed to exist. I told my friend recently that I needed distance, that I felt better away from them. She got defensive and told me I was hurting her. She told me I shouldn't have said that. Then she blocked me. It still hurts. I still feel guilty, but I also feel free. I think I had been mourning that friendship for a long time before it was over. We had a lot of fun together over the years, many good memories. They made me laugh a lot. But almost all of these memories are tainted by moments of hurt, which I've been ignoring for the sake of keeping the peace. But I don't want to do that anymore. Your friend's fiance wasn't joking. That was not teasing. That was years of targeted disrespect. The way she defended him says everything. You weren't being sensitive. You were being mistreated. A real friend would protect you, not allow you to be picked apart because it keeps the peace. I'm glad you left. Let the peace stay. Update. It's been about a month since the friendship ended. I thought I would feel lonely, but I don't. I feel calm. I go for walks again. I make breakfast slowly. My fiance and I even talk more. I feel like I have space to breathe in my own home for the first time in years. My ex-friend's fiance tried to come collect his board games last week. My fiance offered to drop them off at a mutual friend's house instead. I didn't want another conversation. I didn't want to hear apologies that weren't truly apologies. I didn't want to be pulled back in. I'm learning to enjoy the quiet. I'm realizing how often I used to brace myself before speaking. I don't have to do that now. I thought losing them would break my world, but it didn't. It made room for something much better. Peace. You didn't lose anything. You removed something that was poisoning your self-worth. Keep going. Life gets lighter from here. Funny how he kept calling it joking, but somehow OP was always the punchline. And when OP finally spoke up, suddenly they were too emotional. No, OP just stopped playing along with his little show. And the moment they walked out, the whole act fell apart. My future mother-in-law told my fiancé our wedding was selfish, so we changed plans. I always thought wedding planning was supposed to feel nice. Something you look forward to and something the family rallies around because it's a moment that doesn't come twice. That's what everyone always told me anyway. My fiancé, 23 male, and I, 27 female, have been together for 4 years. We're not flashy people. We don't like big events, loud receptions, or speeches that drag on forever. Our families are small too. So the wedding we planned was simple, quiet, and close to the people who mattered the most. There were supposed to be 8 guests total. Just our parents, my nan, his grandfather, and 2 close friends each. That was it. We found a garden venue near my nan's home. She's 88 and has as many lives as a cat. She's been brought back more times than any of us like to think about. She uses a wheelchair now, and traveling is hard on her. She practically raised me alongside my dad, and there wasn't a version of my wedding day where she wasn't included. We hadn't even paid the venue deposit yet because my uncle was gifting us the reception space. He owns a tea room that overlooks the river. He offered it to us for free as his present. Friends offered to handle food. Everything had fallen into place so easily that it felt like we were being carried into this next chapter. And then my future mother-in-law, who's 56, stepped into it. She said the date didn't work. She had already booked her vacation time a year in advance, and she wasn't willing to rearrange it. Not even as a one-time exception, and not even for her only son's wedding. We asked if she could do a swap, pick up an extra shift, or just call in sick. We weren't asking for her to climb a mountain, just to be present. She didn't respond. Then, a month later, my fiancé went to visit his grandfather after a health scare. I couldn't go because of work, and that gap was all she needed. She cornered him in another room. She told him our wedding was selfish and inconsiderate, that we were prioritizing my nan over everyone, that the family should be bending around her because she was the mother of the groom. He came home quiet, the kind of quiet someone comes home with when something has shaken them deeper than they know what to do with. I set him on the couch and got him something small to eat. Then I waited. When he finally spoke, he couldn't even get his words out cleanly. She had told him that he was letting me dictate his wedding and that we were humiliating her, that she wasn't going to attend if things didn't change. That was the moment I understood the problem. Somewhere along the way, the wedding stopped feeling like ours. It had begun to revolve around her. We were tiptoeing around her feelings and schedule like she was the guest of honor. So then, I asked him what he wanted, and he didn't know. He was too tired to think, too wrung out with his mom. He got too used to folding himself small, so she stayed calm. I let him sit with that, and while he did, the solution formed all on its own. We hadn't paid for the venue yet. The tea room was still just a gift promise. Our friends hadn't started catering prep. In short, nothing was locked and nothing was irreversible. We could let go. We could take our wedding back. So we made phone calls. I let my father and nan know first. My nan just laughed, that light kind of laugh that travels through the phone and warms you. She said she'd attend however she had to, even if it meant Zoom. My fiancé's grandfather was happy to sign as witness. Our friend shrugged and said to just tell them where to show up. The only person who would lose anything was the one who refused to show up for us in the first place. We moved the ceremony to a small hall near our town. Open invite, easy access. Dress and suit are still the same. Instead of a reception, we'd walk across the street to the pub for drinks, music, and whatever the night became. Afterwards, the honeymoon would be a road trip tour across the country, visiting the friends who couldn't travel. When we stepped back and looked at it, it felt like we had found the wedding we actually wanted from the beginning. Something simple, something real, and something ours. And as for his mother, my fiancé will tell her this week, calmly and kindly. The invitation stands, but only if she chooses to show up with grace. The door opens both ways. We're simply done having to drag her through it. I don't get how this is seen as a win. Your nan was the most important person to accommodate, and now she's attending through a screen? You changed the entire wedding because your mother-in-law got upset? If she learns you'll cave anytime she applies pressure, she's going to run your marriage the same way. There's a version of this that makes sense when you add more context. The wedding was already starting to grow into something you didn't want because you were trying not to upset her. What you ended up with now sounds like the original plan, just simpler and without bending your life around someone who can't show up for you anyway. If she wants to miss her son's wedding because of pride, that's on her. The road trip honeymoon sounds sweet, and your nan being excited is the only blessing you need here. This isn't a loss, it's peace. Update. He told her. He called her one evening after work and explained everything slowly. He told her the ceremony was moved, but that everyone else was still attending. That she was invited, but only if she chose to attend without making it about herself. She didn't yell, she didn't cry, she just went silent. And then she said she'd think about it, which is her way of saying no without taking responsibility for saying no. My fiancé hung up and he didn't shake. He didn't look rattled. Actually, he looked lighter, like something had been set down after years of being carried. We're still going forward exactly as planned. Nan will be there in person. My dad confirmed the drive. The tea room is booked by a different family now, and I hope they eat cake and laugh for hours. Nothing was ruined. Something was reclaimed. Edit. And just to clarify, we know future mother-in-law could make it if she wanted to. Also, we've been low contact for a while now, and since we don't plan on having children, we expect to shift to no contact after the wedding as a peaceful boundary. But given how she handled this, that timeline might move up. That silence from her was the most honest answer she'll ever give. She wasn't sad about missing the wedding. She was sad she couldn't control it. Let her sit with that. You two go get married in peace. Your fiancé choosing to tell her himself is huge. That's the real milestone here. Not the wedding changes, not the ceremony location. That. He chose you and your future over the comfort of keeping her appeased. That's the foundation of the marriage you actually want. Future mother-in-law said the wedding was selfish, so OP said, cool, and changed the entire wedding without her. That's not selfish, that's efficient. Less stress and more drinks for everyone. Mother-in-law tried to be the main character and instead got written out of the script. Now she's just an extra in a scene that no one remembers. My landlord thought he could pull one over on me, but ended up learning to read the fine print before you sign it. In Germany, where I live, it's common to have indefinite rental contracts, which do not have a set end date and remain in effect until terminated, usually by the tenant. For context, I live in Germany and we have extremely strong tenant rights. I've been living in my apartment for about 8 years now. About a year after I first moved in, I received a letter from the company that owns my building. The letter essentially said, "Dear Mr. X, we are canceling your existing rental contract. If you wish to continue renting this apartment, please sign this new contract with higher rent or move out within 30 days. This absolutely terrified me. I was in a city where rent prices were skyrocketing and I had only just managed to find a long-term, affordable apartment. When I started looking at my options, it became clear that I was either going to have to fight what felt like an eviction or return to the US and start over, just as I was finally finding some stability. After asking around, someone told me about a program, a nonprofit group that advocates for tenants' rights and provides legal advice to members on their rental rights. I found one of these programs near me, went to their office, explained my situation, filled out some paperwork, and then spoke to the group's lawyer. I showed her the letter and my current contract, and she looked over it silently for a few minutes. Finally, she looked at me and said, in the most diplomatic voice, "You have nothing to worry about. This letter is nonsense." She then pointed to a single line in my contract. No changes may be made to this contract unless both parties consent to the proposed change. In other words, as long as I refused to sign the new contract, they couldn't do anything. The lawyer then sent a letter on my behalf to the company, and I received a copy for my records. It basically informed them that they would face serious trouble with the government if they continued to pursue this matter. About a month went by, and I heard nothing further. Then one day, a letter arrived from the company. They admitted defeat and tried to cover themselves by saying that the original letter was sent in error by an employee who's no longer with the company. For the next 7 years, it became an annual ritual. The company would send me an ominous letter threatening to end my lease. I'd forward it to the group, and their lawyer would respond, telling the company to buzz off. Finally, after attempt number 8, the lawyer sent them a final letter instructing them to stop sending these letters for good. Since then, I haven't heard a single thing from them. Am I the jerk for not letting my partner fake propose to me while on vacation? I'm 28 female. My partner, male 30, and I went on vacation last week for a 2-year anniversary and just got back 2 days ago. It was a fantastic, amazing, and romantic vacation, up until the moment when my partner suggested we ask a stranger to take a picture of us in a fake proposal in front of the Eiffel Tower. When he brought this up, my heart started racing. I immediately assumed he was saying fake proposal as a cover for a real proposal, which is not something we've discussed yet. I think I just said, "Wait, what do you mean?" He replied that proposal pictures in this spot were really popular and that we should take the opportunity while we could. I told him I wasn't interested in a fake proposal picture and that I thought it was strange he had suggested. We moved on from the topic pretty quickly and went to dinner. When we got back to our hotel that evening, I brought it up again, as it had been on my mind and I could tell I had actually upset him. I asked him outright, "Were you planning on actually proposing to me, and did I ruin it?" He said no and explained that he doesn't think we're ready for that step yet. For the record, I agree with him. Our relationship was long distance for the first 8 months, and I'm planning to move in with him when my lease is up in January. He went on to say he always thought a proposal picture in front of the Eiffel Tower was incredibly romantic, and he's worried that whenever he does propose, it won't be as special as Paris. That's why he wanted to get the picture while we had the chance. I apologized and told him I only wanted pictures of a real proposal and that I'd cherish them whenever and wherever it happened. Since this conversation, he seemed pretty crestfallen, and I genuinely feel like I ruined something important for him. I called some friends when we got back home and got mixed advice. Some of them agreed that it was a pretty odd request, while others said I should have just went along with it. No harm done. Am I the jerk for not taking the photo with him? Not the jerk. It is weird, and also tone deaf on his part. Like, what was he planning on doing with the photos? Anyone seeing them online would instantly think it was genuine before reading any accompanying text that explains it's fake, which is just a dumb move in itself. The only way it would make sense is if he actually was planning on proposing and is too proud now to admit it. But you don't spring a fake proposal idea for that. You just ask a stranger to take a few photos, and they'll quickly realize what's happening. Fake proposals aren't romantic, even in front of the Eiffel Tower. And if he's bummed because he genuinely just wanted to do a fake proposal for fun and giggles, and you said no, then boo-hoo. He's an adult. Tell him to get over it. Am I the jerk for not letting it go when my car got totaled? I, 17 male, am a senior in high school in a small southern town. Since my school combined students from 2 other nearby towns, I didn't meet many of the other kids until we all came together in 9th grade. Last Thursday, when I got to school, I found 2 open parking spots next to each other, so I parked there. Everything seemed fine until the end of the day. My friends, Mark and Joe, were coming over to my house after school, but when we got to my car, I saw that it had been wrecked. The damage was bad. Both doors on the left side were dented from the front to the back. My side view mirror was completely gone. The left taillight was shattered and the bumper was hanging off. Neither of the left doors could open, so I couldn't even get in. The car that had been parked next to me was gone, but it was obvious that whoever had been there was responsible for the damage. Mark and Joe were shocked, and I was just kneeling there in disbelief. I called my dad, who told me to stay put while he left work to come help. He called the police, and since I was still in shock, he talked to them first. When they asked me what happened, I told them what I knew, which wasn't much. The police gave me a ride home while my dad stayed a bit longer to talk with them. Afterward, Mark and Joe and I went to my house, and my dad came home later. He said they'd do their best to figure out who hit my car, but since there are no cameras in the school parking lot, there wasn't any evidence to go off of. Then, Mark suddenly shouted that he knew who did it. He had texted his girlfriend about my car, and she told him that she had seen a girl named Annie driving around with a messed up right side of her truck. Joe had also texted his brother, who confirmed that he had seen Annie parking next to me that morning, since her truck is bright red and hard to miss. Annie isn't really a friend of mine, but we know a lot of the same people, so we hang out sometimes. She lives in another town, but she seems like an okay person. Annie drives a massive pickup truck, even though it's not something she actually needs. Her mom's a teacher, her dad's an elementary principal, and she works at a grocery store. Me, Mark, and Joe decided to drive over to Annie's house to check out her truck ourselves. Sure enough, her truck was in the driveway, and the right headlight was broken, with scrapes all down the right side. Annie ran out of the house as we got there, and when I asked her if she had hit my car, she started freaking out and yelling. Then her dad came outside, telling us that he'd call the cops if we didn't leave, so we decided to go. The next morning at school, I got called into the principal's office. Inside were Annie, her dad, and her uncle, who happens to be the police chief. I tried to explain what happened, but the principal cut me off, saying there had been a report that I had harassed Annie at her house. I tried to tell him my side of the story and asked if I could call my dad, but he just told me there was a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and suspended me. He told me to leave and said I should just let it go if I wanted to return to school. I texted my friends afterwards, and most of them were supportive, saying Annie's behavior was crazy and they were on my side. Some, though, told me to chill because they thought Annie didn't mean to hit my car. So, am I the jerk? Should I have just let it go? Not the jerk. I would at this point, politely at first, request the investigation be done by your county police or state police. Her uncle being the chief of police is a huge conflict of interest, and it seems like they're completely ignoring the damage to your car that probably totaled it. In addition, make sure your insurance knows about all of this, including the uncle being the chief of police. Police like him give the profession a bad name. I have family and friends who are police and law enforcement, and if they had a family member do this, they would report the family member in a nanosecond. Annie committed a hit and run. Report this to the police and your insurance. Edit. Your principal has a zero tolerance against harassment, but apparently is 100% okay with shielding a felon. No, I don't work here, and my wife made that clear. In my culture, the average height is around 5'5", but I'm a full foot taller at 6'5". Because of that, I often get asked to help reach things on high shelves at grocery stores. I don't mind helping out as long as the item is light. 2 or 3 kilograms is fine. Anything heavier, though, tends to bring down a mini avalanche of dust, which no one wants. This story takes place in 2022, shortly after my family moved into a new apartment near a massive wholesaler called Metro Cash and Carry. It's similar to Walmart, originally owned by a German company, and caters to business owners. Most of the smaller stores in the area get their stock from there, so it's a good place for us to shop in bulk. One day, my wife and I decided to split up to handle our grocery list faster. She was picking up oils, and I was gathering grains. I noticed a good deal on 1 kilogram packs of wheat that made them cheaper per kilo than the 5 kilogram packs. However, the 1 kilogram packs were almost out on the main shelf, so I reached up to the top shelf and pulled some down. Just then, an old woman behind me politely asked if I could get 5 for her as well. I didn't mind, so I passed them to her, and she thanked me before moving on. I started pushing my cart towards the legumes section when I heard a loud, "Excuse me?" I thought someone was calling an employee, so I kept going. But then came an even louder, "Excuse me?" I turned around, and there she was, a Karen waving me down like she was hailing a cab. I pointed to myself, confused. You talking to me?" She snapped. "Yes. Can you help me, please?" Without moving, I asked, "With what?" Karen pointed at a 5 kilogram pack of rice on the top shelf and asked if I could bring it down for her. I glanced at the hefty pack and, as politely as I could, explained that it was a bit too heavy for me to grab safely and suggested she ask an actual employee. There were 2 nearby that could help her. Then I turned back to continue with my shopping. Not 5 seconds later, I felt a tug on my arm. Karen was now physically pulling me back toward the rice shelf. She kept yanking my arm, insisting, "It's not that heavy. I'm in a hurry. Just get it for me." For a moment, I just stood there, completely shocked and honestly a little flustered. I may be big, but I'm also non-confrontational and tend to avoid scenes. So instead of arguing, I did the only thing I could think of. I pulled out my phone and called my wife. Now, my wife and I balance each other out perfectly. She's petite, much shorter than average, and she's also louder than a jet engine, if I had to pick an analogy. As soon as I said, "Hey hun, could you come over here? A lady's giving me trouble," she was on her way. Within moments, my wife appeared, storming over with the intensity of a one-woman army. She glared at Karen, who was still gripping my arm, and said, loud enough for half the store to hear, "Why are you touching my husband? He doesn't work here, and he's certainly not your personal assistant." Karen, caught off guard, stammered a few words, dropped my arm, and took a step back. My wife, still not fully briefed on the situation, asked, "So what exactly do you want from my husband?" Karen, clearly flustered, mumbled something about, "Just needed some help getting rice down." My wife's eyebrows raised, looked at her, spotted an employee nearby and said, "If you need help with rice, that's what these folks are for. My husband doesn't work here." Then she made eye contact with one of the actual employees and gestured toward the rice, saying, "This lady needs help with the rice. Mind assisting her?" Without another word, the employee came over and Karen slunk away toward the rice with him, still muttering under her breath. We still shop there, but we don't split up anymore. Am I the jerk for refusing to be excited for my sister about her pregnancy when she's never met my kids? My sister, 29 female, and I, 26 female, have always had a troubled relationship and have rarely seen eye to eye. Despite our differences, we do love each other and try to get along as best as we could when we were younger. Things started to fall apart after I married my husband, who's 30, 5 years ago, and had 2 kids shortly after. Throughout my pregnancy, my sister didn't bother to check in on me, and she completely distanced herself. I assumed she was jealous or had some issue with my pregnancy, but I wasn't prepared for what would happen after my first son, who's 3, was born. Shortly after his birth, my sister asked me for a picture of him, even though we hadn't spoken during my entire pregnancy. I thought maybe this was a turning point, a chance for us to finally reconnect. I was very wrong. She had never met either of my sons, despite my offering numerous times to bring them over. She always has an excuse, has never asked about them, and never showed any interest in their lives. Yet, she boasted about other kids who were children of her friends, while seeming to have no affection or care for her own nephews. Now, things are even more complicated because my sister recently announced that she's pregnant. I'm happy for her and excited that she's becoming a mother, but I'm still hurt by how she treated me and my kids. My mom, who's 65, says I'm being selfish and that I should just let it go, but I find it hard to just forget everything that's happened. I genuinely want to have a relationship with my future niece or nephew, but I don't know how possible that will be with all of this unresolved tension. I tried reaching out to my sister to resolve our issues, but she isn't interested. It feels like the only reason she's in contact with me now is because she's pregnant. My mom has also tried talking to her, but my sister won't give any reason for why she hasn't wanted to see my kids. It's important to mention that my mom wasn't thrilled about my pregnancies and didn't support me through them, believing I was too young to have kids at 23. She refused to offer any encouragement, both during my first pregnancy and again with my second. For more context, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. In the past, I've always just apologized and let things slide, even when they deeply hurt me. So, am I the one in the wrong here? Update. I spoke to my mom and set a boundary with her. I asked her to stop pushing me to talk to my sister. I also told her that an apology from her would go a long way in repairing our relationship. Unfortunately, after hours of talking, she still doesn't see what she did wrong, so I'll be keeping my distance for a while. My sister has been contacting me repeatedly, asking me to plan her baby shower, but I haven't responded yet. Update on my sister. She's been blowing up my phone ever since she asked me to plan the baby shower. I've muted her on all platforms, but she insists that I need to be involved and not ruin her special moment. She's also playing the "we're adopted" card, reminding me that I'm her only real sister. But where was she when I needed her? I'll be speaking to my sister soon, but I want to make sure I'm prepared for the conversation. She makes me nervous, and I don't want to lose focus on what I need to say. Final update. I spoke to my sister and told her I wouldn't be planning her baby shower. Her reaction was intense. She yelled and accused me of never being happy for her, saying I should be more mature. I also brought up how hurtful it was that she hasn't shown any interest in my kids. She responded openly, calling my kids brats and saying that her kid would be better off than mine. I told her she can't just pick me up and drop me off whenever it suits her. I congratulated her on her pregnancy and ended the call soon after. I didn't want to hear anything else hurtful. She did admit that my mom has been giving her information about my kids, which makes me angry. Right now, I'm not sure how to move forward from here. Have you asked her why she's acting like that towards your kids? What does your husband say about it? OP. Yes, I have asked her numerous times, but she just denies doing it. My husband says that I should go low contact with her and treat her how she treated me. I agree with your husband. Your sister knows and has always known what she's doing, so return the same energy to her. My sister did the same thing. We're no contact now. I had to threaten my mom with no contact because she kept pushing me to be in her kids' lives even though she wouldn't meet mine. I never got a reason for her ignoring my kids for close to a decade now. Not the jerk at all. I'm going to say no jerks here. I've got 2 nieces and a nephew, and I genuinely have zero interest in them. This isn't malicious, as you might infer. They just have no relation to me other than being my siblings' kids. I also have 2 daughters of my own. Here's the thing. When you have kids, that's your own journey. It's deeply personal and it forever changes your life, but only your life. Expecting the same sentiment from your siblings just because they're your siblings is a projection of your wants. But those are entirely your wants. It's not your right. Do we hope our siblings will want to know our kids? Yes, of course. Can we fault them when they don't? No. That disappointment is purely our own, and putting it on them is simply selfish. When I see the kids, I'm the fun uncle, but I will never go out of my way to spend time with them specifically. I don't wish any ill will on them. None. But if I never know them, I'm genuinely unbothered. They aren't my kids, aren't a core piece of my life, and I don't feel any need or reason to adopt them into that core. This is just how I am, and I'm not a jerk for it. I also don't hold any double standards. So again, you're not the jerk for feeling upset as long as you don't try to force her to have a relationship with your kids. She's not the jerk for not wanting one as long as she isn't actively hating them. How do I move forward after my daughter hid her father's affair from me for 2 years? I, 49 female, was married to my ex-husband Derek, 49 male, for 20 years before divorcing a few months ago. We have 2 kids, a daughter who's 22 and a son who's 17. I found out that Derek had been having a 2-year affair and my world was shattered. But what hurt almost as much was discovering that my daughter had known about it the whole time. She actively hid it from me for 2 years, lying, covering for him, and never once trying to warn me. When I found out, I was devastated, not just by my husband's betrayal, but by my daughter's decision to keep it from me. She was young at the time, and I understand it was a difficult position for her, but the pain was immense. I never confronted her directly, thinking it might affect her since she was about to go off to college. I simply told her I knew, that I understood, and tried to move on. But after she left, I found myself distancing myself from her more and more. It wasn't planned, I just needed space to heal, and that meant not calling her as often or reaching out as much. Fast forward a year and a half, and I've started dating someone who's 41 who has a 10-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Recently, we all went to Disney together, and he posted a family photo of us on social media. For context, my boyfriend covered all the expenses as a gift for his daughter's birthday, wanting to make it special for her. Along with my son and me, she chose her 2 cousins to come along, making it a big family-style trip that was all about her. My daughter must have seen it because she didn't call me for over a month afterward. Honestly, I wasn't as affected by her absence as I would have been before. I still love her, but every interaction brings up that pain. Out of nowhere, she called me in tears. She was screaming, saying I obviously hadn't forgiven her and that I'd shut her out on purpose. She accused me of replacing her with my boyfriend and his daughter. She kept saying, "It was a long time ago. I was a kid. I didn't mean to hurt you." She said she thought she was doing the right thing by staying quiet, that she didn't know how to tell me, and that she was terrified of breaking our family apart. She asked me if I'd ever forgive her or if I'd moved on for good. I tried to tell her that I love her and never wanted to replace her, but she just kept pushing that I should get over it by now and that I'd abandon her for this new life. To top it off, my ex-husband called me later, furious, accusing me of leaving my daughter for a younger man and a new family. He even had the nerve to call me selfish for moving on. Ironically, his girlfriend is 30, and he's the one who blew up our family with his affair. It's like no one understands that I'm still trying to recover from years of betrayal, and it feels like I'm expected to just let it go, as if my pain doesn't matter. My son, who lives with me, found out about his sister hiding the affair after overhearing my husband's mom and sister talking. He was crushed and hasn't forgiven her either, and they've barely spoken since. I never wanted him to know, but it feels like the entire family is divided now, and I don't know how to fix it. I'm in therapy, but I still feel lost. Part of me knows she was young and didn't know how to handle it, but another part of me feels like she chose him over me. I love my daughter, but every time we talk, that hurt resurfaces. I don't know if I'm feeling as a mother or if I'm protecting myself. I feel like I've emotionally checked out, and I don't know how to reconnect. Edit. Just to clarify, my divorce actually happened a few months ago, not 3 years ago as I originally mentioned. My sister, who is a bit of a scatterbrain, encouraged me to post here and typed out much of it for me. In the process, she got the timeline wrong, and I didn't catch it before posting. My daughter was 17 when she found out about the affair. She had a lot going on at that time, including having to change schools due to some personal issues and repeating a year. So when I found out, it was less than 2 years ago. I hope this clears up the confusion. This is beyond the pay grade of Reddit. Continue therapy and maybe joint therapy with your kids, as it seems both your son and daughter are still affected significantly by the situation. There's no easy way out of this. You should definitely cut all contact with your ex unless it's about your kid. Keep all communication via text so you don't have to hear his BS. That he thinks he can call and go off on you is unbelievable. Next time, don't pick up or just hang up. Maybe you and your daughter should get therapy together to try and sort things out. I understand she was a kid trying to keep the family together, but your feelings are totally valid. I can't imagine how hurtful it must have been knowing she hid it for so long. Imagine your mother-in-law demanding you have a baby even though you don't want to. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.